Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Registered Ranching Podcast. Back again for another week. We've been on a roll here, Willie. It's Tucker Brown, Willie Wardle, with you in the studio. And we are just a few... Is it? I guess it's a month away. A little over a month away from the March Bull Sale.
Just barely over a month.
And I guess I shouldn't call it just the Bull Sale, because it is a horse show.
Nerd.
Don't do that again.
That's what a horse sounds like.
Don't do that again. Willie, do you like apples?
They're mid.
Ooh.
What about pears?
Pears are actually pretty good. I like apples
That's
still.
acceptable.
I actually really like apples. I just wanted to.
You just want to come to the farm.
I gotta come visit the farm.
Well, that is Apple Girl Kait that you are hearing behind the mic. Welcome from all the way from Washington. Kait Thornton visits Throckmorton.
Thank you.
Make sure you talk into that speaker, though. Into that mic.
Yeah, talking to that JBL speaker right there.
And yeah, in the JBL.
The JBL.
So you're about to have your first ranch fuel, is that right?
Yes, I'm very excited. Do we get to hear the
Yeah, you
crack?
can crack it. You can crack it. You got the blue raspberry. Willie's got his.
No, I got the blueberry pomegranate.
Oh yeah, not raspberry.
Duh.
Gosh, who
Sexy
should
crack.
know? Yeah, if you haven't had yourself a ranch fuel, it's real cowboy energy. Try it out. Use code Tucker Brown, save you 15%.
Ranch fuel.
Oh, that's terrible.
It gets the people's attention. When is the Apple Girl Ranch Fuel collab coming? That'd be a good one. Sparkling apple cider.
Ooh,
Ranch fuel.
Magic.
she can make her own flavor.
Ranch Fuel ought to hire me for their
Are there any cowboys up in Washington?
Sure are.
You sure?
There's more in Texas.
I'm joking. I know
There's some
there
good
are.
bull riders from Washington.
They're tough. Those northern boys are tough.
So Kait comes to us from northern Washington, like way north Washington, 20 minutes from Canada, eh?
Oh yeah.
And it's that's a long trip.
It is a long trip. It's like 3.5 hours to the nearest airport. And then get on a plane.
I couldn't imagine living that far from an airport.
Kind of sounds like here.
Yeah. Yeah, and then drive 3 hours to Throckmorton.
And you're known as the Apple Girl.
Yeah, Apple Girl Kait.
Apple Girl Kait. When did this? So you've got a large following across social media platforms, kind of like I'm doing with the beef industry. You are a representative, a face, kind of pushing for the what industry?
Yeah, it's the tree fruit industry.
Tree fruit. Okay, I knew it wasn't just apple,
She
but
speaks for the trees.
I speak of the trees, absolutely. Yeah, because we have apples, pears, and cherries up in north central Washington. Well, all through central Washington.
say that again. You have apples
Apples, pears, and cherries.
and cherries.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more than just apples.
If George Washington was there, he would have plenty to cut down.
Keep that man away.
He'd be a full-time logger instead of president. We have a lot of just different tree fruit. We even have some peaches, apricots, and stuff. I just went with apples because we have we call it a ranch, but we have our farms, our orchards split up into two sides of the river. So the side of the river that I grew up on, there's mostly apples. But on the other side, we have mostly pears. But I knew more about apples, so I went with apples.
So are you also like the pear girl, Kait?
I'm the fill-in pear girl until we find the real pear girl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or my brothers volunteered to be the pear prince.
Oh, okay. Well, so you just mentioned it. You've got family involved with you.
Yep.
What does that look like?
So I'm fourth generation, and this year, 2025, will be 100 years since my great-grandparents moved to the valley that we live in now. So we've been farming there for 100 years. My dad's on his 36th crop, which is pretty cool. And so I'm learning a lot from him. And then I have 3 siblings, but we have all very different interests. And I'm the only one who really wants to go in the farm. My brother might want to, but he's working on becoming an MLB player right now.
Oh,
He's balling.
He's balling.
He's balling right now.
Well, that's neat. Even though I know absolutely nothing about the tree fruit industry, what you and I are doing, what Willie and I and you are doing is quite similar in representing an industry that is people don't know much about.
Yeah, well, exactly. Okay, I mean, people have eaten apples their whole life, right? They've eaten pears their whole life. But when they go into a grocery store, what are they thinking about when they actually see apples on the shelf? And so creating that more of like an emotional connection or a backstory to that fruit that they're seeing on a shelf. Because like what we do as ag producers is like we're creating a real product. It's not like manufactured. I tell people all the time, like, you're going to see fruit that's imperfect because it's out in the elements, for 140 plus days out of the year, 24/7, Mm-hmm. And so giving a bit of context to that piece of fruit.
So you were asking me yesterday what my favorite kind of apple is, and I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, you bombed.
But it just goes to show, like, even though that we're involved in another side of the industry, we don't really know a lot about apples.
No,
I do not.
It's a huge problem, actually, because everyone thinks about apples. They think Red Delicious, Golden Delicious, the green ones, Granny Smith.
Granny Smith.
I don't think of any of that.
Okay, well.
Most people. Okay, we'll go with most.
Most people, that's usually beginner level.
Okay.
You're preschool level.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah.
But what we've done in the last 30 years or so is come out with so many excellent varieties, good eating quality. They hold up well. We've got our storage systems figured out so we can store fruit at impeccable quality. And we're doing all these things and people still don't notice the difference. People still think of it as, 30 plus years ago where you just had Red Delicious. And they've had bad experiences with Red Delicious because usually those are the apples that you find in schools. And the way our food system has worked is like those are usually pretty mealy or they don't hold up very well. And so people have bad eating experiences growing up and that's carried forth to adulthood, which is kind of annoying.
What got you? Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, the past, like, everything she just said was, like, deja vu except with your dad in parallels of, like, we want to raise cattle with good feet. We want to have these Goldilocks cattle that have not too big, not too small, just right, super efficient, have a lot of fat, but not too much fat, great marbling, like how the cattle have evolved, but it's doing the same thing in all the industries. Like, you guys are really focusing on how can we make the best apple. The most efficient apple.
Well, I don't know if you guys have the same experience, but in making sure that our consumers have a good eating experience, we've sacrificed ourselves because, first of all, we do all the investment of growing a new variety. But even we pick our fruit, we put it on a truck, and then we send it to a warehouse, and they store it and they pack it for us. Well, we only get paid for the fruit that's going in the box, essentially, that's going to the stores. And making sure that customers have a consistent eating experience means less fruit is going in the box. And so we're getting less of that money back. And it's all just to make sure that people actually have a good eating experience and keep coming back for more.
Yeah, it's for the... has there been a push for you do Kait's crates? So that's kind of like a direct-to-consumer...
Yep, 25-pound boxes, straight off the tree. So I don't even clean them up or anything, which maybe eventually I will. But that's kind of the authenticity of it. Is people get it straight off the tree. It has this white stuff on it, and that's clay to help against sunburn protection.
It's full of pesticides.
No, no, Tucker. No.
You're no different than the rest of them.
Yeah, you
Tucker Brown.
I'm just playing devil's advocate there.
No, it's that straight off the tree experience and doing that more direct to consumer. And I've really enjoyed that because growing up, it was we pick the fruit, put it on a truck, and then I don't really you wouldn't really think about it again. But when I turned 16, starting that direct to consumer experience was really cool because I got to answer a lot of those questions and interact with a lot of consumers. So I have a lot of fun with it.
And I think it was when we were at EE Day, the first time I met you. Yeah. And I think you were talking about that. People started asking you all these questions, and you're like, there's a lot of these things I don't have the answers to. And that kind of sparked you digging in and making sure that you had all of your facts right.
Yes.
You put in a lot of work
yes,
making sure you know the apple industry, but also just the farming industry inside and out.
Yeah, you have a great memory, because that's like when I was 16, 17 years old is when I started on the road, and I was going back to Maryland. I went
right.
and Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and like I've gone to a bunch of different states introducing a new apple variety, because with all of these new apple varieties or new pear varieties that we put out there, like consumers are not going to go into a store and say, "Oh, I'm going to pay $3.99 a pound for something I may or may not like." And so going out there and sampling all of those different varieties is what I did a lot of. And of course, when you're having those, like you're handing a slice of apple or a piece of fruit to someone, they're going to ask questions. And when I say like, I grow this piece of fruit, they're like, okay, you're the source. You should have answers to these things. And that's where I took on a lot of responsibility of like, I really want to know what I'm pushing. And instead of like, you grow up on a farm and you're like, okay, we do all these things, but why do we do them? What is the deeper intention, or what is more context to those activities that we do? And so I started asking my dad, like, why are we doing this kind of thing? Because
it is a horrible feeling when someone comes up and asks you something and you're like, man, like, I don't know. Because like that's been a huge motivator for me. Like, I mean, Tucker hired me to help edit the videos and do the podcast on this side of stuff, but I find myself a lot of times like representing the R.A. Brown Ranch at these conferences and stuff, and people ask me stuff, and at first it was just like, let me go and get Tucker or Mr. Donald, and like that's been a huge motivator for me to like, let me get a really good basic understanding, and then like, especially now that I've gone on a couple road trips with Tucker's dad, I don't know how much you've interacted with Tucker's dad, but he is a wealth of knowledge as far as the beef industry and really a lot of different industries, but he specializes in the beef industry, I think it's safe to say.
Safe to say.
So I'll pick his brain about everything that I can think of, and that's been a huge motivator, so that when someone comes and asks me something, I can actually have a conversation, and not just having a conversation, but actually giving them the truth and giving them information.
Well, I think you do the right thing of like, when you don't know something, being honest and being like, let me get back to you with that, because it's showing that like you respect the other person enough to not just give them a bunch of BS answers. Oh, and that's like one of the biggest things that like drives me on social media, and I'm sure you guys see it all the time, is like all the misinformation out there just because someone wants to look like they have credentials or they have like the wisdom when it comes to food, and there's so much misinformation.
I'd rather not know than be wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't lose if you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, in the good side of, like, ignorance kind of has a bad connotation, but if you're ignorant in the fact, like, in its true meaning, that's a lot better than just either being wrong or lying about it, like knowing that you don't know and pretending that you do. Because your reputation's everything.
And then you're representing the industry, like in the moment where you're talking to those people, consumers.
Man, I know.
Man, they got that kid over there at the R.A. Brown Ranch. He has no idea what he's talking about. Stay away from them.
Well, I'm like the first person in our industry to really do anything like this. I'm kind of jealous in the ranching world because I feel like there's more of a community of advocates out there for the industry versus like tree fruit. You got a ton of like super brilliant people. Like if you go into horticulture, like I got to go over to Texas A&M and talk to some of their horticulture PhD students, brilliant people, but not a lot of people that are going out there and building a platform and talking about what we do. Because one of the biggest things is like, all right, people think of fruit, they think of like pesticides and like chemicals and all this stuff, or even like treating workers unfairly and stuff. But we've made so much progress in the last 50 years or even 20 years of like, okay, reduce pesticide usage, like making sure we are handling those chemicals safely. And then we treat our workers incredibly well. So have you guys heard of the H-2A program? Yeah, so we use the H-2A program for majority of our farm workers. So we provide housing, we pay
There's strict rules for that.
Yeah, there's super strict rules. Like we're dealing with a lot of headaches right now. But we're also paying a higher minimum wage. We're paying over $19 an hour for these guys, plus time and a half after 40 hours, which is insane for agriculture.
That is insane.
Yeah, that's a Washington thing.
I need to talk to my dad about that.
Yeah. Need a raise.
Yeah, just, the time and a half, that'd be pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
I'll take that, Dad.
No complaints.
You're listening?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you've in the research I got to do before this, I saw you have been called the most influential person to the fruit industry, tree fruit industry
Oh.
by Packers.
Oh, yes.
After Johnny Appleseed, but then
that's
he had a big
What is Packers? Is it
the Packer. It's a publication for
Yeah.
the
Okay.
fruit industry, and I was on the Packer 25, which was a
Flex.
huge
Flex.
It was. I felt really cool because it wasn't just. I was like the Packer 25 people in fresh produce, so it's not just apples and pears. Like that's oranges, watermelons,
All of it.
avocados, stuff like that. And I'm looking at the like bios of other people, and they're like have been retail buyers for X amount of years, or they were produce managers for X amount of years. Like people who really know their stuff when it comes to fresh produce.
Yeah.
And to see like myself at 22 years old up there with those folks was quite an honor. So I don't know. I just like go with my heart, and there is like I love that you guys have faith, and like that is start out every day like reading the Bible or talking to the Lord, and because you need it. Like there's so many instances throughout the day where you're like, okay, I gotta handle myself right.
Right. Yeah. What kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier? I jumped ahead a little bit. Yeah, I lost what I was going. I just had it on the tip of my tongue.
I will say, like, you definitely are in a league of your own. Like, I can't think of another person that does
Oh, okay. Now I remember.
fruit stuff.
Thank you, Willie.
Or, you're welcome.
Yeah,
like,
thank you for
or even just produce in general. Like,
There are some, but it's really hard. So like, we have a huge problem. I think the beef industry does this a lot better than we do. We market to ourselves a lot because you can get there's so many different variables. You can get really there's people that are really into entomology, like knowing about bugs and stuff. There's people that are really into like knowing about the actual like physiological structure of a tree or whatever. And you got people that all really know their stuff, but there's not someone who is like me where I have a blanket knowledge of everything and I'm putting it out there to the public in a way that's like really digestible. No pun intended. But and like easy for people to understand and shareable. Like you think about social media, like things have to be shareable. So if I keep it vague enough, people like they want to share that information with their friend or whatever. I share a lot about like different things, like aspects of an apple that you wouldn't normally think about. And so people take that knowledge with them and they share it with their friend or their family. And it turns into kind of it's like a storytelling aspect.
do you find it difficult at times to, like, not go further in depth and kind of keep it kind of as a blanket thing to make it simpler and, I guess, like you said, more digestible for people?
Hugely. I mean,
On social media, because you're super passionate about it. It's got to be hard sometimes to kind of pump the brakes and like, all right, maybe this is a little too much
Dumb
information.
it down enough for me.
Yeah, for the Tuckers and Willies out there, like you got to pump the brakes a little bit and like, well, if I really go this far into depth, I'm probably going to lose some people and it's not going to get as much, I guess. What was the word I was using yesterday? Engagement.
yeah.
That it would, as if I kind of just kept it. And it's not like you're withholding information. Like anyone can come and find you and talk to you about it, and you'll go and talk about a bunch of crazy Apple nerd stuff probably.
Yeah.
But how hard is that?
Nerd stuff.
How hard is it to find that balance and be able to keep it in a place where it's like, all right, this is going to be the most beneficial for the most people?
Yeah, you can't go into the weeds too much. I think one of the biggest things with agriculture is it's so complicated, so complex, which is what we love about it. But also, we also have like a chip on our shoulder because you look at the media, the general media, or like the general public's perception of agriculture, and you feel like someone's always attacking you. So when I'm making these videos, I always feel like the need to kind of like over-explain or like justify ourselves in this aspect or another. And I have to remember like, okay, we just got to keep it really vague and leave room for people to talk, leave room for people to comment and share their thoughts. And then if that raises more questions, I can always answer those questions in another video. Right?
Exactly what you do.
Yeah, very similar. What? So the point where I had forgotten earlier, you talked about how there feels to be, from your point of view, there feels to be more of a representation on social media for ranching.
Yeah.
Rather than the fruit
You
industry.
guys are so cool with
I think there are two reasons for that. Number one, like I do believe that like the National Cattlemen's Association has done a good job recognizing the need for that and pushing that, showing like giving an award for the best influencer. I mean, not influencer, but they have they have a beef advocate of the year, and I think that has
Who
helped.
is that?
Huh?
Who is that?
Yours truly. At one time, I was
One time. He was
one.
once.
And you know another one, but I can't say.
Oh.
It's this year's.
Oh,
It's this year's champion.
that's cool.
We'll have to say it off air, but
Have I met them?
yep, we'll have to say it off air. So, but I think that helped, and in NCBA, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, also has like a training program where they kind of train you to tell your story in a way that others will understand and is digestible.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. Number two, I do think that there is, from my point of view, more of a romance with ranching than there is with tree farming.
Very well said. Yes, it's like romantic. I mean, you think about like, Yellowstone's helped a lot with that too.
Yeah.
It's just like telling that story of like it's true American culture. Like you think. I mean, I've been.
I don't have a story with George Washington though. Like
That is true.
I just keep going back to that.
I mean, there's some great American, like Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Johnny Appleseed.
I
There's
know.
some big Paul Bunyan. His
Those
ox.
are all chopping down trees.
Take down the trees.
The Lorax. The Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss. Like that. I mean, like, I get what you're saying, but we got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah. But there's nothing like a cowboy hat. I don't know. It's like you got this cool, like, folks riding up on horses. And the fact is, like, you guys still do that same stuff.
Right.
It's like that culture has carried forth into what, like, the present and will be in the future. And I don't think that, like, we have that with tree fruit, unfortunately. Like, there's not a lot of that nostalgic factor to it.
So we had Farmer Froberg on here, who you know, Tyler Froberg. Shout out. I feel like you and though y'all grow different products, I feel like y'all are in similar situations of in an industry that isn't necessarily represented on social media very well. Do you ever think about doing what Tyler does and like as much direct to consumer marketing as he does?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about that all the time because I am the succession plan. And so I'm looking at our farm and we've always been commercial growers, right? So we grow the fruit, we send it to the warehouse, but there hasn't always been like that direct to consumer experience. And so I've gotten into that more because I also enjoy working with people. It takes a certain type of person to like want to work with the public and stuff because the public is the public, right? Like there's issues.
I normally say we don't get into ag to talk to people. That's not why we get in it. Most of the time it's to get away.
Exactly. But we just recently, like in the last couple of years, reacquired the warehouse that my great-grandfather built.
Ooh.
And it's right off the main highway going from Tenasket up into Canada. And there's a lot of traffic on that road, but there's not a lot of people stopping in Tenasket. But you go just over the border, they have done ag tourism so well. And I'm like, clearly it can work. And so I'd like to do something like a cider tap room or a place like people can get a bite to eat. And then, of course, like I have my online audience, so I'd like to do like some products. I wouldn't sell my fruit, but maybe like shelf-stable products.
Podcast room.
Well, that too. That's a great idea. But do some like applesauce, apple chips, things like that, and sell them to people because I love that aspect.
So what is the most asked question when you do your direct to consumer, Kait's Crates or whatever it may be? People come to the farm. What's the most common question you get?
Well, people will be like, "Are these organic?" And then we have a couple of varieties that are organic, and I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay, so it wasn't sprayed." And I'm like, no, that's not what organic means. And so having to explain to people that there's a difference between organic and no spray. And it's usually like a good conversation because I'm working with people that are more local. And so like they've grown up around fruit and stuff. They don't know everything, clearly. But there's more of a respect for it. But like going to grocery stores and having to talk about that, some people get really heated. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds similar to our industry.
Yep.
All right, so we have a new segment. We have a new segment in this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's brought to you by Bedrock.
Ooh.
Bedrock, the toughest toughest truck bed you can get. So, because of that, what is the toughest thing about apple farming or tree fruit farming?
Man, it's like picking fruit. Like especially, so one thing like people don't know is that pears are heavier than apples. So when our guys are picking pears, so we got like 65 guys working at a time, and those picker bags, those can weigh like 60 pounds at a time, and they're climbing up and down ladders and stuff and unloading them. But
What about splinters?
oh, that's a good one too, because you
A lot
got
of splinters.
not from the tree itself, but from the bins. So we have wooden bins.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Crates.
Didn't even think about
Yeah.
that. I hate a splinter. I'll perform surgery. I'll get the needle out, and I'll sit there and keep cutting until I get it out.
What?
Do you cry?
A little bit.
Just one tear.
Just one single tear.
So y'all are putting a ladder up on the tree, climbing it.
Yeah, so it's got a pole, so the guy has to pull out the pole. And one thing we do in the wintertime that people don't think about is that we like sharpen the end of the pole so it digs into the ground better.
Oh, nice.
And it's more stable. So it's like
I'm the animation.
I like the sound effects. No, so you plant it into the ground, and sometimes it has to go through like tree limbs and stuff, and then you set your ladder and climb it up, climb up it.
And so they're wearing like a backpack.
Yeah, the picker bag, it's like straps around their shoulders, and then it's like an open bag. So it's like, think of a cylindrical chute, and then it's cloth, and so you have to fold it up, and you put the ropes through these little like hangers. And so that's like, it'll be a closed bottom, and then you fill it up with fruit. And then when you go to the bin, you have to be like really gentle because you got a bunch of fruit in there that bruises. And then you gently open up that bag and slowly release that fruit into the bin.
Do you ever have any language barriers?
Oh, hugely. Like when I'm around the crew more, I definitely pick up Spanish more.
Yeah.
So I can understand Spanish better than I can speak it for sure. But it always depends on how much time I'm spending with the crew. But that's one thing. I hope by age 25, I want to be fluent in Spanish.
Well, surprise, the rest of this podcast, we're going to be speaking Spanish.
New segment.
New segment brought to you by Ranch Fuel.
Duolingo.
Muy bueno.
So when did you start getting into, that segment brought to you by Bedrock Truck Beds. Check them out. We have a Bedrock Truck Bed. We love it. We love Bedrock Truck Beds. Good folks. Shiner, Texas.
They make a really nice unskirted dog-eared flatbed.
Is that what you want?
I really want one.
Do you guys wait until you have your truck bed all beat up before you put a flatbed on, or?
I think it depends.
Why? Were you looking at Tucker's truck bed? Because that was because a certain someone...
No, I didn't even know
A certain someone floored... I could have been killed.
I just know a lot of guys from like where I'm
Wasn't
from.
me.
It wasn't you. It was a certain manager at the ranch. Was fooling around, slammed it in reverse, and didn't see me in the buggy coming behind and just T-boned the crap out of
Oh
me.
my goodness.
The buggy was fine.
Willie was scarred.
No, I was fine. I'm too tough for that. I survived a car wreck in a buggy, but that's why the taillight's missing. Because a certain manager who won't be named, but it is a boy.
Yeah.
Because if I said it was a girl, it singles it out.
His initials
Start with
Eason Reese. I mean, ER. What? When did you start all of your social media stuff?
I was about 17 when I got into it more. And that's because we were about to lose our farm, and I was having all
Save the farm story.
It was kind of a save the farm story. I just I grew up seeing my parents put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into our orchard, and they went from a little over 20 acres to over 400 now. And that's not a lot for like wheat and stuff, but that's a lot for tree fruit, at least for us. And like we grow beautiful fruit, we're just not getting the money for it. And the fact that like ag lenders were saying, or like our bank of 30 years was like, no, ag is too high risk. We're not gonna give you money anymore. And it was like COVID was just starting. Ag lenders couldn't come out and look at our orchards and stuff. And that's a huge aspect of it. Like the numbers don't always make sense with farming, but if you can go out to a farm or a ranch and you see the culture, you see the succession plan, you see what you have set yourself up with, how you spend your money, like that is worth investing in. And that's how you can really make that sale to a lender or whatever. And so I was trying to like showcase what we do, educate consumers, because it was like this, like, we're doing a good job, but it's not moving the needle in the right way. So that's kind of why I started.
And just so people, as they're listening, they can look up your page. What is your page?
Apple Girl Kait, Kait.
Kait. How many let's talk about the success you've had on social media. I mean, so far you've saved the farm.
You saved the farm.
I did not save the farm, but I helped.
Tucker knows more than 2 apples now.
That's good.
That's actually huge.
That's like twice the amount I knew before.
And I know 1 apple.
Your memory is full now.
Yeah. So what you did is working.
Yeah.
Obviously there's not typically just one thing that saves the farm, but.
Well, it's been hard to like grow my socials with all the other things I've had going on. Like I just graduated last year from Washington State University. Go Cougs. And
Wazoo.
Wazoo. And it
Pac-12. Poor
no,
Pac-12.
it's the Pac-2 now.
The Pac-2.
Womp womp.
But like that was, doing full-time school.
Yeah.
Like think about how many kids they do full-time college and they don't work a job or anything else. They were just focused on school. I was like doing full-time social
You weren't even in the
media.
country either.
No, I left the country for a little
Yeah.
bit. I was in Switzerland for 3 months.
Oh yeah. It's like, I don't know.
She wasn't even in the area.
Yeah, I was out.
Save the farm from across the big pond.
Yeah, the big bond.
But I'd have to go home every other weekend or so, get content, and that's a 4.5 hour drive one way. Get content, edit it throughout the week when I was at school, post it over time. Like it was what?
I thought you meant while you were in Switzerland. I was like, dang, you drove fast. It's like they make a bridge across this thing or something that I didn't know.
You're the
about.
reason why we get such a bad rep for geography.
Like, dang,
God.
I guess there's a bridge across the Atlantic Ocean
The
now. And
ferry ride.
She floored it. Anyways, sorry.
So you'd be in college.
Yeah,
Working
going
back
back
and
and forth and like building my audience and stuff. But it was a grind for sure. But it's turned into like I get to do cool things like podcasts. I've got a little over 500,000 between TikTok and Instagram, and my face is on semi trucks.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing. Yeah, a lot of cool opportunities.
One just goes by right now. That'd be so crazy.
Just down in Texas.
Get the camera real quick and just pan it out there.
Yeah. How'd
How'd that start? What's the story behind that?
Well, so we take our fruit to several different warehouses, and one of the warehouses we take our fruit to is Stemilt. So you'll see them in the grocery store, like the stickers with a little ladybug on them. Mm-hmm. That's Stemilt, and that could be our fruit. And they were doing a campaign with Perone Produce, which is a wholesaler out of Washington State, and they wanted to do this Meet Your Grower campaign. And there's a couple of other growers that have their face on these semi-trucks, but mine's cool because my face is on both sides of the trucks.
Ooh.
I know. But they emailed me and they're like, you want to do this? And I was like, okay. I didn't know like if it would actually come to fruition, but it did. And I think there's 2 or so trucks with my face on them. And it just says, Meet Your Grower, Kait Thornton, says to Milk Growers. And then it's just like me holding apples. And
That's
it goes
pretty cool.
all over Washington, Idaho, Montana, Oregon.
Do you get that sent to you?
Oh, all the time. People send me Snapchats, Instagram, like they'll comment like, saw your face in so-and-so Montana. And I'm like, whoa. I've only seen it once or twice in person. Like I'll pass it on the road and I get like all flustered. Like I blush and I'm by myself. I'm like, oh my gosh. My poor ex-boyfriends though.
They just have to see your face everywhere.
Can't get away from me.
Flex on them. As far as distribution goes, like what are the odds that the apples that your family have grown would be the apples that I went to in Walmart in Maryland? How does that work as far as distribution? Or would that be maybe like, is it kind of like on a regional basis or is it?
I'd have to look at the box that the fruit came in because it has our lot number on it.
Okay.
And so it depends on that. But it's like, it's a slim chance because I don't know where our fruit actually ends up. And the cool thing about the fruit industry is there's like over 2,000 growers just in Washington State
Golly.
of like farms like ours. And there's some guys that are like are big farms that have like 20,000 acres or so.
Golly. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, think about how many people they have picking fruit.
America.
I know guys that pick 2,000 bins of apples a day. A bin of apples is like 1,100 pounds.
Oh.
Gosh dang.
Yeah, and so it takes, and you think about like the whole process for picking fruit. Yeah, pick that fruit, make sure it gets into the bin, and we have to make sure that we're like having our guys pick it so it's not getting bruised. We also can sometimes like clip the stems so they're not puncturing each other in the bin. We do our trucking. It takes like 2.5 hours to get to the warehouse. We make sure we have air ride trailers so they're not bouncing around. Then they get to the warehouse and they're stored for X amount of months, and they have to run across the line, make it into the box, make it to a distribution center, and then to a grocery store. And some produce stock boy that's like 17 could drop our fruit, and it's all for nothing.
So if you're a stock boy at United,
You better get your act together.
You have a very important job.
so you said there's a lot of 20,000 growers in Washington alone.
2,000.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, that's not, yeah. 2,000 growers in Washington alone. Are there, what's the next generation looking like? Because the average age of a rancher right now is like 64.
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's not a lot of interest. It's like people have interest in the growing adjacent parts, like selling the fruit, packing the fruit, even being field men, field women, doing like the horticulture side. But there's not a lot of people that maybe they want to, but they can't be a grower unless they're like born into it. Like I am. I'm very blessed in that regard. But like there's people that want to grow fruit, but you have to, even if you started out with $3 million, you couldn't make it. Because there's so much overhead costs.
Wow.
You got to buy the equipment. You got to plant trees. Once you plant trees, you're not going to see a profit on it for like 7 years. And like the block that we're doing right now, it's 15 acres, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's going to be $300,000 just to plant the trees.
Yee. Dang. So I feel like, I mean, in my head, that's saying that once concrete is poured, like if a tree is knocked down and concrete is poured, that you're like losing ground that may not, or like you're losing apple trees or fruit trees that may not come back.
There are growers that are pulling out their trees right now because it's not even worth it to put in the money to farm it because you're not seeing an ROI. And because when you have trees planted, you have the responsibility of maintaining that orchard because you also have neighbors. Like for codling moth, like an insect that's really destructive to our orchards, you got to make sure that those pressures are kept down or it's going to affect your neighbors too. Yeah. So you have to think about that. And so there's a lot of growers that are like, it's not even worth it to grow the fruit. But yeah, and there's like planting new varieties. Like we talked about sugar bee apple, cosmic crisp apple. Like these are awesome varieties. But if that marketing doesn't carry forth and people aren't buying that fruit, you can grow that fruit and that tree comes to maturity and it won't even work. You have to pull out that tree because there's not a market for it.
So this, I feel like you just made a perfect segue to what I want to get into on the marketing side. That is what you went to college for, correct?
It is. Business administration with emphasis in marketing.
Oh, flex. Okay.
Emphasis.
Ooh, emphasis.
That's a college word.
It's a college word right there.
So I want to talk about the marketing, kind of your specialty. Let's just go there. What do you see? Why did you go to school for marketing, and how has that helped you since coming back to the farm or to your apple ranch?
When I started selling fruit, that's like my dad is always, I love my dad. He's like a huge encouragement to me. And he's like, you're really good at marketing. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I like didn't know what marketing was. And as I did more of it, I did internships. I got to work with like incredible marketing people and just learn about like taking something that wouldn't normally have a lot of meaning to someone and creating meaning or giving meaning to something. I really enjoyed that. And I like the storytelling aspect. I think it all comes back to storytelling for me because that's the easiest way people comprehend information is if it has a kind of beginning, middle, and end or something to relate to. And so by being a relatable person on the internet that people feel like they could connect to is kind of what I really enjoyed about marketing and just like the social aspect.
What's one of the biggest things you learned in college about it? I mean, like some of the things that you keep with you or that you like to share with others?
Oh, gosh, I don't really know. I kind of went to college for connections more than anything.
Same.
And I don't know. I think I just learned more about the importance in marketing of making sure the numbers add up, right? Because there's a lot of marketing people, and I've had this experience where it's really easy to spend a bunch of money, but making sure there's ROI on that money in marketing is huge, especially in agriculture where we have very small budgets compared to the rest of the world. I mean, you think about like the NBA, how much marketing money they have versus a whole commodity. We've been doing a lot of research into that of like, I think the apple industry spends not even $4 million a year maybe $2 million a year on marketing versus avocados from Mexico. It's like $80 million.
I do love avocados.
It worked.
It worked.
I do too.
What? So the beef industry has this deal where every time an animal is sold, at least $1, depending on what state you're in, goes towards market. Like you have to pay that. You have to pay that towards marketing beef. It goes to NCBA. Is there anything like that in the food industry?
Absolutely. It depends on like which warehouse you're working with, but at least there's the Washington Apple Commission, and they're focused now on complete export marketing. So they're marketing to other countries for us, and I think it's like 13 cents a box that's sold. So like a 40-pound box that is sold, about 13 cents goes towards marketing of that. But you think about like volume, right?
Yeah,
There's a ton of boxes being sold. But that's like where the marketing money goes. And then like for Sugar Bee Apple, we were doing like, I can't even remember, it was like $1.29 or something per box, that's a lot for us. But we also had a team of people that were running that program that are like really good at spreading that money over places that you actually see some progress.
Some return.
Yeah.
Some ROI.
Some ROI.
That's right.
What got are the companies you work with on social media more about apple farming, or do you get some outside of that industry?
You mean like my partnerships?
Yeah.
Oh,
Your
no.
collaborations.
My collaborations actually are like rarely Apple related. I think it's like more just who I am. I actually like one of my biggest partnerships is with Washington State Employees Credit Union, WSECU, and they are Washington based, and I've kind of become a face for Washington too. I mean, Washington's a pretty big state, but like I went to Washington State University. I'm a Washington apple grower. Apples are so Washington. And so all of those different things. And so I get to represent Washington as a whole, not just apples.
Wow. Representing the state and the industry.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Me and the Seahawks.
You and the Seahawks. Do you ever get any sunshine up there?
Oh my gosh, yes. We're called the Sunny Okanagan. That's what our county is called.
Okahoo?
Okanagan. We have a lot of natives up in Washington.
Oh.
So that's why like my hometown is Tenasket, after Chief Tenasket. And there's the Okanagan. There's the Okanagan River.
Walla Walla.
Walla Walla, Yakima, like things like that. But yeah, we have a lot of sunny days. So we actually have like the most recorded clear days. And so you'll see a lot of satellites and stuff up there. So even in the wintertime, it gets pretty sunny.
You can see the satellites from there?
No, on the ground, pointed up.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the satellites in space. I was like, how clear is it there?
I just have really good vision up in Washington. No, it gets pretty sunny. I know a lot of people think like Washington, they think rainy Seattle, but we're in what we call an alpine desert. So we get about the same amount of rainfall as Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, dang.
So yeah,
8 inches?
it's like 14 inches.
14?
Yeah,
Dang.
something like that. I'm not really good at remembering numbers.
Not very much.
The snot is from Washington.
Cole Snyder, yeah. State
Yes.
FFA president.
Enumclaw.
Is that the place he was from?
Yeah, I was gonna say when I
saying these wild words.
when I said Walla Walla, you looked at me like I made up a word.
I
That's
did.
a
I
town.
thought you did.
That's
I
a
thought-
town.
Town. It's
you were
also
just
an
making it
onion, a Walla Walla sweet onion.
That's where Derek Kabbalah's from.
Seattle.
Kabbalah, bull rider, PBR.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's a Washington guy.
What is one thing you wish, or like you go around training? What do you train? Like how to get into marketing, or more marketing yourself on social media?
Yeah, like telling farmers how to tell their story.
Yeah.
And like romanticizing their life. It's like taking all the things that you do every day and you think that is so boring and educating people about it in a fun way. We call it edutaining.
Edutainment.
Yes, edutainment.
Edutaining. Learning to educate.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, where are some cool places you've gotten to go?
Well, I got to go this last November to Interpoma, which is the world's largest international apple conference.
Oh,
And that was in Italy, Bolzano,
in
Italy.
Italy.
I was there for 10 days.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. And Bolzano is the region of Italy that actually used to be Austria up until World War I. And so it's like at the Dolomites, and so I got to see the Dolomites, and everything is on a very steep grade, but they're like, over there, they have such like little amounts of land. I mean, all of Europe can pretty much fit in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so like if there's dirt, they're like, we're going to plant something there. And so I'm seeing these super steep hillsides and they've got trees on them, but everything, like all these families have about 5 acres is like the amount of land they have. And their whole family is supported by it, but they do everything by hand. So they can't like move tractors in there and stuff. So I got to see some cool stuff over there. And of course I've been to a ton of different states, been to Texas a bunch of times, Arizona, back to the East Coast quite a few times. I got to go to CMA Fest.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, and hand out apples there when I was like 19. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. I got to meet some of the Titans cheerleaders.
Dang.
I was fangirling.
So what do you wish for people who are listening, looking for pointers on how to start, whether it's marketing their own product or marketing their industry?
I think I just like talk about what you're passionate about. Like there's room enough for all of us. And I think that like people are always asking me like, well, I don't want to be seen as like competition to you. And I'm like, you're not gonna be competition to me because I have like my personality is going to appeal to one type of audience. Not everyone's gonna like me. I know that that's the reality of it, but someone else's personality might appeal to the person that doesn't like me. And so like that's why there's room for everyone. And so just like have confidence in that. And I always tell people there's like 2 billion people that use the internet. You're going to find your audience, right? Like just put out content and it'll find the right people. We have good enough algorithms that it'll reach the right people. So, and I think a lot of like the older generations, they think of media as like, you know, it was TV where everyone watched the same like 10 channels, right?
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. There's so much media out there. It's like you don't have to be that serious about what you're putting out there. You don't have to be perfect and make sure you're saying the right things all the time. I mean, be mindful about it, but like you don't have to be perfect. And I think there's a beauty in that you don't have to, you know, script it all out.
In or outside of the ag industry, who do you think is one of the best marketers? Is there somebody that markets themselves or their company so good?
I don't know if it's like my favorite way of marketing, but one that comes to mind is the Paul brothers.
Okay.
They have taken themselves from Vine, super like short form content, to a huge brand, very recognizable, things like that. And I like
whether people hate them or
whether you like or hate them. I mean, they've done a pretty
starts
dang good job.
Yeah, absolutely. So like that's one that comes to mind. I think like one of my favorites is Jenna Kutcher. She's built an awesome audience and community. Like I guess it's like you can look at brand recognition or you can look at like brand loyalty and community where you don't even have to like stand up for yourself because you got an army of people that are like so for you or so for your brand or your product or service. And I think there's beauty in that too.
Willie, what's yours? Do you have somebody who you like markets?
Dale Brizzy.
Dale Brisby.
The
greatest
dude,
apparel
he is
line.
He is actually
one of the best marketers, yeah.
I mean, you go from just being a rodeo cowboy, ranch cowboy, to you're hanging out with Kid Rock and Cowboy Cerrone now. I mean,
Pretty good.
That's pretty good. And he gives a lot of his credit to God, but and it's all God's plan. I'm not saying that it's not, but he doesn't give himself enough credit either. Like it's pretty impressive.
Like what we were talking about yesterday is like how he doesn't drink or like doesn't give into pressure like that. There's so much temptation that comes with like notoriety and fame.
Yeah.
And
Nothing
like,
against Kid Rock, but he's got kind of a notorious party.
it's like, well, I do it for the one time, but like that's human nature, right?
Yeah.
And so you gotta like be mindful, like even with us, like building enough of an audience that like, you know, people pay attention to us. I have people that all the time message me and they're like, my kids love watching your stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I'm a good example.
Some random person in White Pine, Tennessee sent a Snapchat of me to Tucker while I was behind the chutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a rando. I was like,
watch what
got
I'm
eyes
doing.
on you, Willie.
I looked around too. I was like, what the?
So that's where Dale does a super good job of like being mindful that he's got a young audience that watches him a lot too.
It's probably his highest paying audience too. I mean, maybe not the ones paying for the product, but
They're the
wanting the product.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Dang, that's wild. So what is 3 years from now? What is Apple Girl Kate? doing?
Hopefully fluent in Spanish.
Fluent in Spanish. Yeah, 2025.
Me hablo español.
Oh, wait, 3 years from now. So 2028.
See?
2028. That's wild to think about. I don't know. I want to see like how far this goes, and hopefully be growing. I've got a social media management and consulting business I do for ag-based companies. Want to grow that a little bit more.
So you're not only doing your socials, but you're doing other companies' socials.
Yes, because I understand agriculture and the dynamics within agriculture, so I can do marketing well for them. Hopefully find a...
Yeah, you're good.
And hopefully find a good God-fearing man. Settle down with.
You're trying to find you. Oh yeah, we're gonna do a Cowboy Cupid for Kait.
The next one's up.
You can apply to go on a date with Kait.
The Apple Girl. Do they have to like apples?
Well, I'm gonna make him an apple pie, so yeah.
Kind of a given.
Kind of given. It
Better
comes
be
with the
a fan of
territory.
apples.
Comes with the territory. Yeah, you can apply to go on a date with Kait, and
That's got a ring to it.
it does.
It does.
Yeah, you
Play
go to
a
the link
little-
in my bio, and there's an application on there, and there'll be one lucky guy who gets to go.
Thank you. I need the help.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I might be an apple picker, but I'm not good at being a man picker. So you get that responsibility now.
Yeah, we have a selection committee, so it's not just me.
A committee. It does. I do need a committee.
It goes by committee.
Thank you.
Will, you have any other questions? I'm not trying to wrap up. I just don't want to leave you.
No, I think I've got a lot of my questions.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again too.
Last time I saw you, we were racing a side-by-side with Dale at
Yeah.
PE Day.
He's driving like a stock Can-Am through the mud and getting
an
through. While everyone else has these Dale has a jacked up one now, but for a while it was just a regular feed bug. It'd be like us taking the one at the ranch, and he's doing all these crazy mudding things with it.
Yeah.
It was not OSHA approved.
It was not OSHA approved, but it sure was fun.
Yeah, Yee Day does sound really fun. Sounds really fun. But I do like to... actually, I need to turn the floor over to you, Kait, before we end, because you get to ask us a question. This is brought to you by Ag Gear.
Ag Gear,
Use code Tucker Brown. Save 15%.
lower that MSRP.
Lower your MSRP. Get you some Ag Gear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've exclusively been... I got it right here.
Looks good.
Dang, Daniel.
Or go to registeredranching.com and get a cap.
All right. What's your question?
Okay, so I am known as like a daddy's girl. I love my dad. You have a few daughters,
Yep,
right?
yep.
One on the way.
Yep.
Which one's your favorite?
No. No, shh. And then maybe you'll have a daughter one day. So what do you think is like the most important like things to do for a daughter as a dad?
Most important things to do as a daughter.
For-
As a dad for your daughter.
Yeah.
So far, there was a guy that gave me some advice that I've kept for a while. I was about to have my second daughter, and I was like, there's a guy who has 3, and I was like, hey, I need some advice, man. What do you do?
Yeah,
He was
you're
like,
gonna need it.
he was like, man, all I did, he's like, it's easy. Girls are easy. All you have to do is love them. He said, and then they're going to love the tar out of you for like 13 years. And then they're going to hate you for just a few, and then they love you forever. He's like, that's all you got to do. He's like, if you love them, then they got to know what that helps them have their man picker right.
Yeah. My dad's loved me, but it didn't help me with my man picker.
Great. Now everything I know is out the window.
No. I think I'm just an outlier.
Wrong, Tucker.
No,
Wrong
but you are
answer.
so right. Like, there's unconditional love, and sometimes it's like that sweet love, but sometimes those teenage years, it's got to be
tough love.
Tough love, and I went through that, and I needed that. We need to learn correction, especially if you got some little cowgirls you're raising. They got some willpower.
Yeah, I get into that stage where I'm like, hey, you do that again, you're getting a whipping. And then she does it again, and I'm like, dang it, now I gotta
She called my
bust her.
bluff.
Dang it.
She called my bluff.
Dang it.
What about you? From like your onlooking.
I'm very far away from being a father.
Willie is
Never know.
Willie is also 3 years from now
Yeah.
looking for the same. Same.
No, I'm married to the game. I'm married to the
Kate
game.
player.
I'm not a player. I'm the opposite. I'm trying to
You're
stay.
the water boy of the game.
I'm just trying to focus on me. But and I'm not perfect at this, but something that I've heard that I'm really trying to do now is, and I guess this isn't really so much daughter, but maybe just, I wouldn't even know if I'd call this woman advice. Maybe it's just more Christian advice. But I saw a deal where, like, treat every single woman you meet the way that you would want to treat your wife. Like, regardless if you're attracted to her or not, like, just trying to be a better Christian. And I'm not saying I do this all the time, but this is something I'm striving for, is, like, every single woman I meet, give her the respect that she deserves because she is a daughter of God, and try and be, like, how would I treat my wife?
I wish I had a "aw" button. I guess I got.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. I'm very far from perfect. So I've got a crap ton to work on.
I love that, though.
But that's something, like, and then as far as it goes, like, with your daughters, like, if I have a daughter, if I ever get married, not looking good, but not really looking to get married right now. I've got a lot that I want to accomplish right now and work on. But if I do, and I have a daughter, I'd want to love her and show her the way that she deserves to be loved, and the way that her, hopefully, not saying that I'm God, but as a representation of trying to be a Christian man, of how God loves her, and have her teach her that self-respect, and be able to know that, hey, I'm loyal, or royalty, you know, like,
yes,
I deserve to be loved, and I deserve this, and I'm not going to take no bull.
Ain't no bull
I
rider.
hope
That'd
you
be my
have a
advice.
daughter one day. Aww.
I hope I have all sons.
That's kind of.
Somebody's got to make up for my 3 girls. So.
Yeah.
I want like 3 boys and 1 daughter. That's what I'm going.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
What is? I like to end it with anything else before we wrap this up.
No, I think that was.
Okay, I like to end it with: is there a Bible verse that you have that has been on your mind, or one that you keep close to you for a long time?
I was just looking at this. Clearly I'm terrible at remembering numbers, so that's where I struggle. I can't remember.
Gotta find. I should have given you a little warning.
I got one.
You got one?
That so our foreman, shout out Tel Ruggles.
Yep.
He's been sharing a lot of really good ones in our ranch group chat, and he shared this one on Friday night, so I didn't see it till Saturday morning. Went to a couple rodeos this weekend. The whole rig got skunked. Actually, everyone got skunked. There wasn't a single qualified ride. So the good news is that everyone else also
Could have won all the ground money.
everyone else sucks. So, I just keep practicing. It's just a matter of time. But he shared, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions. And he was talking about he was entered in a varmint hunt, and he was really thinking about all the cool stuff that he was going to win or get with all the money that he made, and it just made him realize, hey, rather than us being so focused on ourselves and what we want and what we need to get, just be focused on what we can do to provide for God's kingdom. And which I did like that a lot, but then also Intel thought it was funny, and I replied to that, and I was like, that's why I bucked off last night. There was too much money added. Thanks for sharing.
I love that.
That's exactly what, yeah, man, there's a lot of money here and no one else rode, so I'm going to make a pile of money. So, yeah, maybe I just don't ride this one, That's not what happened.
All right, what do you got?
One I had highlighted, and so I don't have one that's my favorite verse, because I'm always going through different things, right? You're going through different chapters of life all the time, and so it's whatever is feeding me at the time. And this one is Proverbs 1 verse 7. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. And just it's a gut check of
It's a hard, tough love.
there is beauty in having discipline and humility and taking correction. It's just like we were talking about, being a teenage girl and stuff. It's I always love the thought of, the Lord is our Father, and there's that paternal relationship, and He wants the best for us, but sometimes the best for us is correction and removing things from our life, or turning us away from things that we think that we want. Mm-hmm. And so learning to love that discipline. Love that.
Love the discipline.
Proverbs is money.
I was about to say, I love Proverbs. There's so much wisdom in there. If you're looking for one to read Proverbs, because it is really good. I said it at the end of the year of the one that would be kind of my yearly verse, Proverbs 21:31, where the horse is made ready for battle, but victory rests with the Lord.
Jameis Winston.
Yeah, boy.
Jameis Winston. Yeah, the horse is made ready for battle, but victory comes from the Lord. Don't forget it. Kait Thornton, thank you so much for joining the Registered Ranching Podcast.
All the way from Washington.
All the way from Washington, we got a cowgirl named Kait Thornton.
Where's your blue ox? Paul Bunyan.
Oh,
Thanks, Kate. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
thank you guys.
You've been listening to the Registered Ranching Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check out registeredranching.com, get you some merch, and hey, we got more to come. But we hope to see you at our bull sale
Yeah.
and horse show.
And horse.
Wow. That's going to be on March 10th, 11th, and 12th, right here at the
right.
Ari Brown Ranch.
That's
Check out aribrownranch.com for more info on that. Willie, we are going down the trail.
Going down the trail. On to the next one.
On to the next one. But there's a couple things you can't forget.
Stay classy and ranch on M.
And ranch on them. Thanks for listening. We love y'all.